foreplay or? Yeah.
So we'll put the beers away today. We've got the coffees and the hot chocolates.
20 seconds. All right. The mics are now hot. You ready? Now, what have we named the show? We've got an idea.
Derek's Dollar Dazzlers. No, we actually don't have a name for the show.
We don't, and we're live on air. Thank you very much, Travis. It is edgeradioaustralia.com. Great to have you on board. If you're on the old socials up there, hi there to you. It is great to have Derek and Whitaker on my left-hand side, mate. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on Edge Radio Australia.
Thank you very much, Lee. And, of course, Travis Carter.
Yeah, I'm over here as well. So
absolutely.
And it's great because we've actually got Monica saying hi to Travis and Derek.
Yeah,
totally ignored Aaron. You must be in the doghouse.
I am now. Here you go. Look, I really appreciate that, mate. I love the sharing of the love. I appreciate that so much.
Love is good.
Now, we're in I was going to say we're in the new studio. We're not in the new studio. This is the well-established studio where we do our videos and podcasting and all that sort of
Isn't this the casting couch studio?
This is the casting couch, absolutely.
No, literally, we've named it
we have.
Didn't we name it the casting couch studio?
Yes, we did. So what a great way of starting a serious podcast, a serious radio show.
Sorry. Nan! Hi, Nan. Sorry, my Nana's watching.
I'm so sorry.
No, Nana is awesome. Hey, Nan. Love you, by the way.
Yep. Well, thanks, mate. Any other relatives you need to talk to before we get the show started?
Sorry, it's just this is the first time Nan's tuned into a stream. So, Nan is awesome. Pop's great. So, I just want to say a big shout out to Nana and Pop.
All right. So, a big shout out to any Nana and Pops out there. Thank you very much for watching, listening, whatever. Derek, we're going to talk about money, mate. We're going to talk about finances, okay? We're not going to talk about his family tree, all right? So, we've had a bit of discussion over the week, and you've got this fancy laptop there. It's got information on it.
This is my office.
Your office. Okay,
it literally is.
Okay, we're in your office. We've got the casting couch. What could
you still go to the casting couch? You're actually in my office.
And the two cameras. Oh my God, Aaron, you're playing. My Nana's watching.
So the two of you are absolutely identical. All right, guys. I want to talk about money, and I'm going to handball straight to you, Derek. Mate, what do you want to talk about today on the show?
Well, we talked a little bit last week about the two economic systems, and I think it's absolutely critical to know the difference, because when you start seeing it, you see why so many people are struggling financially and why you have found it difficult to struggle financially. So to do that, you've actually got to go back into, we have two financial systems. One's called the Babylonian system.
Yep.
And the other's the preferred economy, all right? And when you actually dive into the Babylonian system, why is it called that? It's actually because it was formed in ancient Babylon.
Okay, so recently. Yeah, okay.
That's it. And we grow up thinking it's normal.
Right.
And you actually look at the attributes of it, and it's not. And when you start thinking that, you're going, far out, I have lived... It was funny, my wife was saying to me last night about some stuff that she's discovered, and she's going, I feel like everything I've known has been my whole life has not been real. And I'm going, okay, that's partly true, not partly true, but... I hear what you're saying, and I can't break it down. I go analytical on it, but which is not always wise.
No, it's not.
But it's when you start looking at it and diving deep. Let me give you an example of this dude. If you look at this guy, he was Nimrod. All right.
Okay.
He was a couple of generations away. You'll actually find him in the Bible.
Well, I've often used Nimrod as an insult, so this would be interesting to see.
It is. It is actually an insult, because if you actually look at the guy, he was not the nicest character.
Right.
Yeah, so
if you look
at it, it goes, Cush was a father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. Now, this is originally written in Hebrew, so you've got to understand this is the English interpretation of the Hebrew. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, Calneh, and Shinar. If you dive deeper, this gets a bit deep for the start, but an early Jewish historian, Josephus, wrote of Nimrod. He persuaded them not to ascribe it to God, as if it were through his means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. Now, this is a really important principle to understand.
Okay.
Because what it does, all this philosophy that we have, we've heard a lot of it in the last 10, 15 years of people going, I'm a self-made man, I'm a self-made woman.
Absolutely.
Is actually, it is part of the problem. Okay? Because we were never meant to be a self-made man or self-made woman. We were meant to be reliant on our Creator, God. Okay? And so, because otherwise you and I boast about how good we are. When really, I'm not good enough to even take the next breath of air. If it really breaks down, it's out of my control.
I was going to say, ego is not a dirty word.
Okay. And he also, what this guy Nimrod did, he also gradually changed the government into tyranny. Now, does that sound familiar?
Well, I may have heard that term, those two terms, in the same sentence before.
Yeah. So this is what happens. He was a conqueror. He went out taking lands over, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did was he marries this woman called Samaranus. Now, she was actually a prostitute, but it wasn't cool to say you're married to a prostitute. So back then, what they did was they created this mythology that she was a goddess risen out from the water, from the sea.
Right.
So what she does is very clever, very sinister. Tell me if this sounds familiar. She combines a religious narrative to his conquest to rule over the people in fear.
Wow, I may have heard this story before.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So this is very interesting. And he is attributed to knowing starting at the Tower of Babel, which you may recall.
Yeah.
So you could have this tower and you're overruling all the people and looking over them and ruling them. Now think about this. If you do that financially, economically, it's ruling over you. The whole financial system is ruling over you.
Very true.
Right? And this is where they introduce things that are really, really interesting. So if you look at the current financial system that we're in, one of the biggest things is it operates in fractions.
Okay.
In increments. We were actually designed in the preferred economy to operate in multiples.
Right. Can you explain that a little bit more for me?
Okay. So let's put it in basic terms. We see these clues in nature. A farmer sows a seed into the ground and can rip 100-fold from that seed.
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was on a 2.5 acre. I was on a 5-acre farm. We planted a veggie patch, right? And we trying to think of the plant that we planted.
Lettuce.
No, it wasn't lettuce. That's where money came from. That we got up this year, wasn't it? It was eggplant, I think it was.
Right.
Anyway, we let it go after the first season because it got busy, as you do with a lot of veggie patches, right?
Yeah. It's a great idea when you first got it. Yeah.
But the following year, we reaped a second harvest.
Okay.
From just a few seeds. Now, this is important because that's how economics is supposed to work. You plant a seed and it grows into 100-fold, right?
Okay.
You start a business, let's say you put down 10,000.
Yep.
Right? You should expect a multiple from that 10,000.
You would think so, right?
Right? You get all the elements right and it's a good soil.
Okay.
So this is a big, big clue. And yet how many of us are hearing, financial planners talk about how 5% per year is a great return?
Well, it's just not. And you made, look, that was an analogy that actually made a lot of sense to me. Because, fractions versus multiplication. Because you're absolutely right. In nature, let's face it, everything multiplies. That's really how it works.
Now, this was a game changer for me because, as you know, I trade for other people, private people and that sort of stuff. This was my business partner. And when I started catching on to this, before I got into that game, I started thinking my mentors had taught me how to trade the markets in fractions. So we were going 3% a month is really good, 5% a month is really good, et cetera, et cetera. And I started thinking, hang on a second. If I do this according to the preferred economy principles, how do I do that? And it totally transformed the way I looked at trading and the markets. So now the benefit of my students are now getting 32% in a couple of weeks, right? On some trades, on individual trades.
Sure.
I had one student, he was doing paper trade, he knew live trade, but in 12 months, doing very little, he turned his account into 52% growth, right?
That's insane.
In 12 months.
Okay. Yep.
So is that the doctor that we know?
No.
Okay.
Someone else.
Yeah.
And so when you see this at work, you go, oh wow, it totally changed the way you interpret things.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, well, look, it's getting that theory and flipping it around the other way. Let's face it, right? I love that.
Yeah. Just going back to what you were saying about the Tower of Babel and looking down over everyone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Aaron loves it when I bring up K-pop references to things. So if there's a song by...
You could be talking about professional wrestling and all of a sudden, hey, it's K-pop.
Hey, no, the song by Lisa Money, there's a big billboard in the background because the song is all about money. And there's a big sign on the back that says, money is a terrible master but a great servant. And this comes down to this one. That's the direct opposite to what the Tower of Babel.
Now, I really like that because I think that this show should be about something, in my opinion anyway, it's about freedom, right? And creating that freedom from, from tyranny where we were before. So, let's not let money be our master. Let it, be our tool.
Well, that's how they control everyone. It's through finances. If you control the economic system, then you've got everybody working for you.
For sure.
Right? And that's the power of this. And this is why financial education is so important. And getting back to the actual, how did we get the system we're in? And why is it, you begin to see how corrupt it is. I mean, I don't just started, right? We could do the whole show. We could spend weeks on just that fractions versus multiples principle, right? Because there's so much in that. But if I introduce some bit later, you'll start to see the contrast between what was originally designed and what we're currently in, and how far apart it is.
Yeah, I think what's really important, a lot of people, this is one thing I've noticed in society at the moment, is people are not educated. The old saying, knowledge is power. And I think a lot of people, especially in the education system, have moved a lot of the knowledge that people got, not so much about, 1 plus 1 or, 20% of 1,000 is $200 and all this sort of stuff. It's not the actual working out how much an interest rate is in comparison to your starting amount. It's actually the consequences of that money. So prime example, I was 18, I got a car, I had to go get the whole thing on finance. Yep. So I never knew that getting a car on finance, even though the car was only $17,000, I ended up paying nearly $40,000 for that car.
Yes, so, welcome to economic reality, my friend.
So yes. A lot of that isn't actually taught at schools. No. And the bit that really frustrates me, especially in today's society, everyone bitches and moans about how bad the education system is, but no one actually does anything about it. So I don't like people who talk the big talk but don't actually take any action. So we actually did take our kids out of school because I did not agree with what the school was teaching them. Like, there were some good things in there, but they were also trying to bring in a lot of really bad things in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that our kids are just way too young to be dealing with yet. So the school refused to heed our request not to teach our kids that. So we said, right, we're pulling her out. And so we pulled our kids
out. That's you taking control of your children's future for them, right? And again, it comes back to finances. If you take control of your money, okay, have it working for you. You can relate this to anything in life, I guess. It's a case of being either, a servant to it or it becoming a tool, right? And obviously, if your children are being raised in a way and being educated in a way that is not with your values, then why would you keep them there, right? It makes sense to me.
You're going to like this one. So the current financial system, the Babylonian system, one of the ways to stop you getting ahead is with taxes. Right.
And interest rates.
Everybody's favourite words.
Let's talk about taxes for a moment. Interest rates is another one, but let's talk about this one. The original preferred economy did not have taxes.
What? Okay.
Exactly.
Tell me more.
Imagine how much further you'd be ahead without taxes.
Oh, at least 50%.
What originally happened in the original economy was that the wealthy would look after the poor. Right? And there would be no poor. They actually would help them out. So give them a leg up to get back started for them to produce wealth. And here's an important principle. You have been given the power to obtain wealth.
Yeah.
Each of you have been given that power. Each of you have a unique talent, a unique gift, right, to generate wealth. It's a matter of looking at and going, all right, how do I put that in alignment with my life purpose?
For sure.
I'm big on life purpose because most people aren't living it, as we talked about. And that's really the key. So when you actually, one of the problems, Australia is one of the highest tax nations in the world, all right? It's ridiculous. It's over 70% in terms of the hidden taxes. We start calculating stamp duty, capital gains tax, income tax, GST. It's just, you're right, it's everywhere.
Everybody thinks, there's GST is 10% on everything. No, there's not.
No, it's 10% every time something changes hands.
That's right. And of course, there's a tariff, and tariff is a nice way of saying tax, let's face it.
And don't forget, government charges and land rates and all that sort of stuff as well. Even though they're not called taxes, they're still calculated as taxes.
That's
the money still goes to the government.
So it's called marketing, mate. It's calling it a different name so people don't feel that they're being taxed about.
Yeah. And I mean, I've spoken to a number of entrepreneurs, over the last couple of weeks, and we're all having a bit of a whinge about how much tax we pay. And these guys are set up to minimise their tax, right? And it's still oppressive. It's still difficult. I think one of the fundamental problems we have in the thinking of tax in Australia is that the better you do, the more we punish you, right? So as much as your income goes up, we're going to tax you more. If we had a flat tax rate, like company tax in Singapore is about 17%, right?
Yep.
If we had a system that was like a flat tax, everybody pays that amount. Everybody would be cool with it. In fact, you'd probably put the accountants out of business because they wouldn't be having to look at all the complex ways to minimise that for their clients.
I have a lot of mates that do mining, and every time they find out they're being involved in politics and all that sort of stuff, the first thing they say, we hate the fact that we've got to bust our guts to support our family while some crackhead is getting a free ride. Why can't they just, and this is apparently a thing across the board with all the actual mine site workers, why can't we have a flat tax rate?
Yeah.
There was one theory floating around for a while that I heard that taxes are actually not required in Australia full stop. So what they can actually do, taking the US model into account, is every time the government needs to spend money on something, instead of charging the populace taxes, they just print the required money needed. And my counter to that was, can you trust someone like Albanese or Scott Morrison not to go, hey, I feel like a pay rise, and just start printing more and more and more money? So I find tax.
I used to work in law accounting, high-end law accounting, financial planning firms, and the amount of great entrepreneurs I saw leave the country because we were paying too much tax here in Australia, and because business had too much red tape. We were losing as a nation because we weren't encouraging them to stay. We weren't giving an incentive to build businesses here that employed people and gave them jobs.
And now the green tape that goes along with it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. Just this morning, I had to pay a very large fee purely and simply to do what we're doing right now. Okay, and this fee comes up every month. I've got to pay it, and it makes me cry every single time.
Is that our APRA license?
Yes. It hurts, and people don't know how much, but the stupid thing is, if you're playing by the rules, and because other people don't, they go through VPNs in other countries, all that sort of stuff. But if you play by the rules and you try to look after the artists and all those sorts of things, then you are. I mean, this is just another tax. Let's face it.
So I've got to bring this up because this pisses me off to no end. So this is for you, everyone on social media. So we actually pay, and by we I mean Aaron pays all the licenses we're required to play music, any music we want. Facebook, YouTube, all the broadcasting services still censor and block all our videos because they will not accept our license number.
Absolutely crazy, isn't it?
So
well, why don't we have a little break and play some of that music we're paying for, right?
Awesome. It's for the people online, because I haven't connected the music into this stream. You won't hear it. But if you do want to hear the music, go to edgeradioaustralia.com.
Yep.
Or you can just sit here and send us questions and we'll answer them on air for you. Well, not on air, but on the social.
We can do that. Look, and the great thing is, tell your friends. As simple as that. We need as many people to get on board with this as possible. edgeradioaustralia.com. If we can grow this community, we can get more truth out. We can get more, balanced opinion out. The left, the right, the in between. Good advice about, obviously finances. That's sort of giving people the freedom. This station is all about freedom. Derek is here to help us teach us that side of things. You know what? We need everybody to contribute. Simple as that. Let's make it happen.
And also, big shout out to Erica. So she's doing homeschooling and saying legends.
Thank you very much.
Go homeschooling.
Absolutely. All right, let's do this. This is a good song. Iris, man.
Iris. It's good because I haven't got my headphones on. I can't even hear it.
No idea. It's Edge. It's David Australia. EdgeRadioAustralia.com.
Goo dolls, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Put it on there.
But today we're all about money. We're all about finances. We're all about finding our way to financial freedom. And so I'm going to again hand pass that up to you, Derek.
So we've been talking about the Babylonian system of two different economies. We're talking about the Babylonian system that formed back in ancient Babylon, and we'll be talking about the difference with that, contrasting that with the preferred economy.
Sure.
How God really intended us to actually operate.
Makes sense.
So we talked about how one system operates in fractions and the other operates in multiples. It's a big contrast.
Yeah.
We've also talked a little bit about taxes. The Babylonian system was a taxation system. Well, hello, that's what we're currently in. The original preferred economy was designed without taxes, okay? And you would give actually what they call tithe. If you look at the Jewish way of doing things, they would tithe to the priests who would look after the religious side of the culture in terms of the offerings to God and that sort of stuff, which would then bring increase to them doing so.
Okay.
It was an incredible system. And so in that process, that 1/12 of the nation was devoted to that. And out of that as well, the poor were looked after. And this leads to the next point, which Travis brought up, and that's this, is that in the current financial system, if you get a loan, you're charged interest.
You are.
In the preferred economy, you weren't.
Okay.
So you look at the heart of that, you dig that, lift the lid on that, and you go, well, why would you do that? Because you're actually trying to help someone out and give them a leg up rather than rule over them for the rest of their life.
And haven't we flipped on that? We now live in a story of virtue signalling, right? I mean, where people want to create that image that they're actually, you have that virtue when they haven't. When we talk about fundamentally, that was the basis of society. Is that right? Is that sort of Am I reading that right?
I'm not quite following it, sorry.
So instead of charging people interest, right, and making a financial gain, you are making society better, and therefore that's what you're gaining out of it.
They would loan to foreign nations, but they would not. So a Jew would not lend and charge interest to a fellow Jew.
Okay.
And that's critical to understand, because the heart of that is actually to help them out.
Gotcha.
And that leads to responsible lending practice. Because what you did, they actually had a 50-year, this is really where it gets really fascinating. Every 50 years, they would cancel out the debts. They call it the year of Jubilee. Now, if you actually look at the Jewish calendar right now, we are in that year of Jubilee. 2022 is that cancellation of debts, which is really, really fascinating. Okay.
Hey, come past my place first.
It's kind of funny considering Agenda 21 was supposed to happen at the end of last year.
And you look at all that's happening in the world right now, right? And the elites are getting stirred up and this sort of stuff. The system is getting turned over.
Of course
it really, really is, which is really, really exciting. Because you actually look at what our money system is. So you create a note, okay? That plastic thing that you hold out and buy groceries with or whatever, pay your bills with, it's actually based on a credit system.
It is.
So it's not actually backed by anything. It was unpegged back in 1972, 50 years ago. The US dollar was taken off the gold standard. This is hugely significant.
It certainly is.
Right? And here we are 50 years later, and you see the US dollar at an all-time inflationary rate, right? They're saying that inflation is about 8-9%. Actually, look under it. There's some people saying it's actually higher. If you do it by the readings that they did back in the 80s, it should be somewhere around 17%. Okay,
I've heard as high as 25% in some industries.
Yeah, it's huge. So they're feeling it there, right? And the way that the US government has been printing money like there's no tomorrow in the last 2 years since COVID weakens the value of the dollar. And there's a little bit of uncertainty, because why the US dollar has been so powerful over the last few decades is because they set up a system whereby if you exchange gold, it has to be in US dollars. So your base currency becomes the ruling currency in the world, right? Now what's happened with this Russian-Ukraine war, they put all these sanctions in, as you know, from an economic perspective, and Putin's gone, fine, we'll keep selling our oil, but we won't do it in US dollars. We'll do it in rubles. China's caught the idea and gone, you know what? It's not a bad idea. And so there's a lot of uncertainty around this US dollar system, which is very, very exciting in some respects, because it's taking a credit system and we're re-looking at it and going, well, what is the true value of currency?
Is it taking control away from the Americans effectively?
It's funny you should say that, because we do, my day job, I do video editing. One of the other presenters, a guy by the name of Stephen Pettit, he was doing this talk about the fall of an empire. So he's saying as the US empire comes down, because that's effectively what they are, they control so many different countries, there's going to be a new country coming up. And whenever the two countries meet at a sort of similar power level, there's generally a massive war at the same time. So with all these, like the Russians changing their currencies, the ruble, the Chinese starting to use their currencies, the yuan, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was saying that there's a very, very good chance, whether it's open war or if it's an economic sanctions war, that's going to come when the two empires meet and there's a switch between one to the next. Either the current empire will come down and then spike again, or it will get decimated and it becomes...
I remember, in the 80s, because believe it or not, I was alive in the 80s. I remember it being, the old story of, that we don't know about how wars are going to be fought and that sort of thing, but we know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones, right? Sort of talking about the fact of the annihilation of the earth and nuclear war and all that sort of thing, right? Now that's the fear, and that worked really well in the 80s to scare the hell out of us. I don't actually think that kind of warfare is even necessary anymore, because when you look at what's going on with China has such economic control of the world now that, quite frankly, I believe we're in a world war. I think that it's now the economic control is far stronger than if you went in there with troops.
China is an interesting one, because China makes out and wants to be the strongest economic system in the world, but they have been going through a huge financial upset. Right, with the whole thing about Evergrande, which is a company over there, which is a real estate company.
Okay.
They've been building, and they have billions and billions of dollars in debt.
Right.
And this is going to have ramifications as far as the Chinese are concerned, because they've just been buying so much iron ore, building these massive cities around the place. And I think people have underestimated what's going on there in relation to their economic output. This is going to be a big splash if this goes, because as you know, you may not be aware, a lot of companies are controlled by the Chinese government.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
prime example in Australia, how's this? The Australian Institute of Science is owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, of course, it makes complete sense.
Well, when I found that out, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. So the Australian government actually has a register of all foreign-owned companies, and so you can just jump on there and you Google it and you go through the government website, and it has a list of all the different things. And it's amazing the amount of the Australian Institute of whatever is owned by totally 100% owned by other countries. Like a lot of our research isn't actually owned by Australian companies.
It's interesting. Okay, for so many years, other countries, particularly in the Asian regions, you can't own land, for argument's sake, in a lot of Asian
Japan,
countries.
Vietnam's another one.
Yeah,
Indonesia, you can't.
Spot on. We never hear that being racist. Okay, never hear that being racist. But if we had the same rules here in Australia, everyone would jump up and down and be upset about it. I think we need to.
Most people don't understand the definition of racism.
Well, that's a good point.
Like the legal definition of racism isn't just suppressing someone because of the colour of their skin or where they're from. It's also holding someone up on a pedestal above everyone else purely because of their skin colour.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah.
That's also a form of racism, because you're discriminating against everyone purely based on the colour of someone's skin, which is stupid.
Okay.
And I think that's a lot of the problem. People don't understand what racism actually is.
I think we need to pull everybody up
Yeah.
to another level, because I think most people look down on themselves. Not that they think that they're, most people don't have the problem that they're better than someone else. They have the problem that they're not worthy enough, in my experience.
Oh, look, how often do you hear it? Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And then, look, I joked before, I said, ego is not a dirty word. I think there's a lot to be said about having some self-confidence. And in Australia, we love our tall poppies. We'd love to tear people down when they're successful. No, you know what we should be doing? We should be striving for that. And every time we see someone who's trying to climb that ladder, what we should do is getting our hands on their butt and helping them up that ladder.
You're exactly right. I think the biggest difference between, there's a lot of similarities between US culture and Australian culture, but there are some differences, and I think that's one of them. It's like, you're standing outside a bank or whatever, or you come across a Ferrari in America, they go, man, how did you do that? How can I do what you did to accomplish that? Where the Aussies are going, you mongrel.
And
that sort of stuff. And I'm going, that has got to end. If we as Australians are going to progress, we've got to get over the tall poppy syndrome and say, you know what? Do your life purpose, do your life assignment, succeed in it, and we're going to celebrate your success. We're going to celebrate with you, because you will celebrate our success as we accomplish it as well.
I like to live with this little theory, as far as I like, if I'm going to build something, if I'm going to be successful at something, I want to take people with me. Okay, I want those people to come with me and be part of the journey. Okay, I don't want to be going. You don't need to step on people to rise to the top. Okay, if you take them with you, you've got people who are loyal and supportive and doing all those positive things, and you're improving their lives. And ultimately, in my opinion, I mean, this has got very little to do with show of money and finances, but reality is that I think life purpose is to, in a lot of cases, make the people around you improve their lives as much as you possibly can. We have to have a social conscience, and this comes out of finance, obviously, and all that sort of thing, about bringing people up there with you and striving for success. Success is a wonderful thing. Why, as Australians, do we knock it? That's ridiculous. So bring people with you.
Taking that the other way as well, we need to make sure that, like you said, not pushing people down. And one of the things I'm noticing on an international level is it seems America is, especially elites in America, seem to be going out of their way to destroy their own economy. And that's one thing I'm finding very, very alarming at this stage. Now, I have noticed the time is 1 minute, 18 minutes to 2.
Yes.
Sorry, it's been a while since I actually had to do the proper time call. So what I'd love to do is, I noticed something today. Japanese manufacturing data is down. The production levels are down. Pretty much everything we're seeing coming out of Japan at the moment, because you've got to remember they're so reliant on computer chips for a lot of the stuff that they produce, and computer chips are as rare as hen's teeth at the moment. So all their data are down. Right. But the Japanese yen is still stronger than the US dollar today.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. So
You're seeing that in a lot of pairings. It's a lot of it is based. You remember foreign exchange trading is usually paired against what the US dollar is doing.
Yeah.
So if the US dollar is getting weaker, then the other ones are coming up.
Yeah. So I want to have a chat about that after we hit a song and an ad.
It's a great idea.
Are we allowed to say ad, or do we still have to say sponsor?
Except we don't have one, but at the moment.
Don't we have the chemist?
We certainly do, yes. But
And 60/30.
I'm not ready for that right now. We'll have to do it live.
Yeah, so don't forget, if you are up in the Marilla area and you do want a really good feed, and I'm seriously good feed, it's 60/30 Tavern. They are phenomenal. Ian's an absolute legend.
I weighed 50 kilos until I met Ian. I really did.
Bullshit.
Okay. That's how good the food is, I'm just saying. Okay. Anytime you get up there for a feed, honestly. And what day is it today? Mondays?
I have no idea. I think it's Monday.
I think Monday's burgers. Oh, I hope so.
Well, even if it's not Monday, his burgers are the bee's knees.
I've lost track. I don't even know what
they're
day it is.
amazing.
Okay.
And the other one, the chemist.
Yeah, went down
Which
to the
chemist?
pharmacy, right downstairs, fantastic people, very supportive, and obviously, they work long hours and great for community. And one thing that it was nice getting an affiliation with those guys is they're very community based and they do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So it's not just another business; it's people who actually are contributing to the community.
My understanding is most of them are actually locals in the Wangara area as well. So you are actually talking to locals, and so it's nothing to be ashamed about going in there with that weird thing on your arm and you don't want to sit in the emergency rooms for 15 hours.
It's just a rash, mate. It's just a rash.
That's what she said.
Here it is, Agent Southern Australia, edgeradioaustralia.com. Edge Radio Australia, Malloy with you. How you doing? We're talking finances, and I'm slowly turning the mics on because Travis Carter's in the building, and we all know the moment I press that button, things get ugly. Exactly, right. We've got Uncle Kenny there. We've got Derek as well. And as I say, we've got Travis, unfortunately.
Oh, that's just a travesty.
So with that, Derek, please. Can they say they work with children or animals? It's some sort of hybrid over there. Okay, well, it's absolute.
Hey, you chose to do it, not me.
Oh, look, I was young. I needed the money. Look, let's talk about money. Let's talk about the way money affects our everyday lives and how we can make, as I say, the opportunities for people to have financial freedom. Mate.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we were talking about before.
Okay, so basically we've been comparing the current financial system, the Babylonian system that we're currently in, and what the preferred economy was actually designed to do. There are so many different differences, and we start looking at that. We've talked about one operates in fractions, the other in multiples. The Babylonian system operates where taxes are engaged. The preferred economy was designed without taxes. We talked about interest, and one charges interest on loans. The preferred economy never charged interest on loans to a fellow citizen. I think one of the other ones is really, really deep, and probably should save for another time, which I'll just introduce it today, is in the current financial system, wealth is made by toil. And the other one is wealth is made under the blessing, which is a spiritual principle. We go back to the Hebrew word called barak. No relation to a former president, okay?
I'm glad you said that. Because that just screams corruption if you earn your money from Barack.
This word was around before he was. So it's fascinating to look at that law. Now, awful hard work, and getting in there and this sort of stuff. We've had the great resignation where people want to stay at home as well. And, we've got that problem in our society right now where they don't want to work.
That's right.
Businesses are going, I've got so much work and I can't get anybody to do it. We are meant to produce something with our lives. Okay? But there's a big difference between working hard and toiling. Toil is like that slavery thing where you just keep on the grind, going.
Comes back to what we were talking about last week with the fact that what was a massive stat about the amount of people who work and don't enjoy what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That's toil, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you actually look at the principle of the blessing. It's actually attracting what we call the favor of God.
Okay.
And that is a whole different way to obtain wealth, where you are what we call under an open heaven, where you're walking in this space in relationship with Him, where He is just blessing, and then you go operating in multiples and multiples, as opposed to toiling away and getting fractions. I'll give you an example. Isn't it interesting how some people, they're saving for that holiday, right? And they're working really hard and putting a bit aside every week, or we thought, not going to get their paycheck for that holiday. And then what do you know? What comes up? The car needs a repair now.
Yeah.
Ouch, right? That's under that broken financial fractional system. Okay. And then, then they start saving and get through that, and it's just something always eating at them. When you have under the blessing, the spiritual law, you are protected from that stuff. You operate in a whole different sphere. Now, things come along and this sort of stuff, but there's always provision provided for that.
Okay, so in a practical sense,
I'll give you an example. We were talking about taxes, and I was having a good whinge before the show to Travis about being hit with these taxes from a couple of years ago, lately in my business and this sort of stuff.
Yep.
Well, it's interesting when it came in, I got the bill. The tax bill was so high, I was like, I don't have those funds in my accounts right now.
Yeah.
Right now to pay that right this moment. And I said, by faith, I said, you know what? But I will when it's due.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, guess what? I had a client come in and play 2 segments of it in 2 lots, and it was enough to cover and a bit more than that bill. I see that operate so often.
Okay, I'm going to go on that. Well, I had a mate who used to live his life very much like that. He used to say, the universe will provide. Like, mate, you can't just hang yourself along like that. Money is going to come. It's going to be good or whatever.
Yeah.
And I
do it every day of the week.
It's living in hopes and dreams, right? But I would watch this guy, and life would just, the universe would provide. Money would just drop into his lap at these particular times. Things, payments would come in, whatever. And after a while, I thought, I'm going to give this a crack, because I've been, the guy with the planning and all that sort of thing, making sure that I always had the money in the right place and all that sort of stuff. Now I do run, with a bit of faith, quite frankly, that that the universe will provide, but whatever words you want to use. But the fact is, you run with that faith. All right.
I'm going to expand this. It does. I'm going to expand this even further, because I get a lot, and please don't hate me. This is not my Tony Robertson moment and sort of things. Like,
okay.
There's a lot of people don't realise that you've actually got 2 minds. So you've obviously got your self-conscious mind, where you actually have to actively think about things, which is very restricted because it's modified by your values, your beliefs, how you're brought up, stuff like that. And then you've got your subconscious mind, which just takes in absolutely everything you hear, see, smell, all the interactions between different people and everything that happens. So the moment you shut up your conscious mind, your unconscious mind can actually get to work. So when people are saying, I'm going to throw that to the universe will throw it back to you, and like, where do ideas come from? No one knows. They just appear out of magic, like it's faith. So whenever you have a problem, you go, right, I'm going to sleep on it. Never make a decision the moment a problem comes up, or someone goes, right, I need you to make a decision on this one. Never ever, and this is what I do. I think never make a decision.
I think it's
immediately.
I think it's reframing problems. I look at it and go, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow.
Spot on.
Yeah.
I had a situation years ago with this client. Basically, did my course, and then towards the 2 lessons short of finishing it, she goes, I'm out, and basically said she was paying, and then a number of months later goes, I'm not going to pay anymore because they made up some excuse and all this sort of stuff. I wasn't thrilled about that, obviously. I was like, mongrel. It was one thought that perhaps I could call, but I thought, no. I thought this is an opportunity for me to improve my systems and ensure that doesn't happen again. So I've done that in my business, and generally it's never a problem anymore. Have open communication. If a client comes into times where you're going, look, Derek, this month I'm having sure. No problem, man. Just communicate and all that sort of stuff. And you come across as a good guy.
Communication is the key. Honestly, what happens if you don't communicate? And I can certainly be accused of this in my life. You let things brew and get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know what? Deal with the problem when it hits you. And you can halve it.
Especially when let's say a lot of, I come from a lower socioeconomic area. A lot of my friends do have financial problems, and like, how do you deal with all, like, because obviously I've got debts, I've got mortgages, got car finances, stuff like that. And they're like, how come you just don't have these sort of problems? Like, you don't have a job, you're not in this sort of trouble. And it's like, simple. I talk to my debtors. If I can't make a payment, I give them a call. Say, hey, I'm going to skip this payment.
That is some of the best
advice. As long as they know what you're going through. I've never, ever had a case where a debtor, so when I say debtor, like someone you've lent money to, like the banks or whoever, they've never, ever knocked someone back saying, hey, I'm going to be late this week, I'll make it up. If you go to them with an offer and you could talk to them in a timely fashion, I highly doubt they're going to knock you back. I've never heard of them doing that.
Well, I'm going to knock you back right now. We've got 30 seconds to get the hell out of here. So what we're going to do, right, is... what's happening next week? We're back on the show next week.
Back on the show next week.
Fantastic.
1 o'clock WA time. This is Monday. We'll have Derek in the house as well. And stick around, because later today we have a really interesting segment at 5 o'clock on the 6-pack at 5. Well, it's supposed to be 6-pack at 6, but we brought it forward. So we've got Ken here. He's actually a representative for the Tom family, who unfortunately one of their family members got shot dead by police, and so we're going to be raising that one, the different standards.
We need to talk about this. It's really important.
It will be a big one, so please make sure you share it with everyone.
Awesome. Derek, thank you very much for being here. Fantastic. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it already.
All right, thank you very much.